Alrighty, so typical Mercury retrograde shit. I should have known. Especially being an Aquarius. Gonna mention it. What? Was that you, Boo?
No, I just randomly fell.
Weird. Okay. So, I've obviously been following closely with the refugee invasion. Crisis, whatever. I've had arguments that people say that, well, you keep freaking out and focusing on Europe, but we live in the United States. Those things aren't happening within the USA. And that it's not going to transpire or progress into how bad and life-threatening it is in Europe as opposed to here, for the people that have at least gotten past the whole concept that there's actually something going on in Europe. So, I have been on the lookout for any kind of news reports, local news reports, because national news will definitely keep this under the rug, as per usual, as like with the Europe country news sources that are trying to keep a lid on this. So there was one that was published yesterday, not yesterday, the day before, and it reads, Muslim teen refugee charged with murder for beating a 97-year-old World War II veteran to death. So essentially, this is a 20-year-old, and one of the other previous stories that had to do with a Muslim refugee happened to be a young man as well. So coincide with the accusations from witnesses throughout the European countries and the nations that have been dealing with this, where they've been insinuating that the majority of the refugee population is actually young men of fighting age, as opposed to them being women and children. Which, actually, if you just think about that too, I just thought about that. So if the majority of them are coming from Muslim culture, right? Women don't have any rights, as well as children don't have rights or permission to do anything, unless it's a boy child who has now been given permission to be the quote-unquote man of the house, and then is allowed to delegate permission to the mother. That would be the only time that would work, and that rarely happens. That would only happen essentially if it's the older brother of their sister or something to delegate authority. So they would actually have to have permission from their husband in order to actually even leave their house, let alone leave the country. So, and you know, it's not like people are going into Syria and putting them on boats and bringing them here and saving them or anything. They're coming of their own accord. So right then and there, throughout the Muslim, I didn't even think of that before. Thank you, Mercury retrograde, making me think of shit like that. They're not even allowed to leave their houses. So, in theory, if you look at the Muslim culture in a whole, since 80% of it's actually based on cultural norms and things that are expected of everyone throughout the community, and then the rest of it, the minuscule amount, is actually based on the Quran, which, as I've said before, it's likely because half of the entire population has limited to no education. Therefore, how the fuck are they going to read a book? So, you know, they probably don't even know what is in the book per se, and I think that's why a lot of women especially say that they're moderate Muslims, because we should ask them if they can read. Because if they're going off of what the people that can read have been telling them what the Quran says, maybe those people are full of shit and playing some Takia on their neighbors or something. That's fucked up. But anyway, so this kid is 20. He's been charged with first-degree murder. He'll be getting life in prison. Apparently he did this last month. He went and knocked on the door of somebody within his neighborhood and was insinuating something about how he's looking for a pet or a kennel or something. Had no connection, no knowledge of these people. And he apparently pushed himself in and then started beating the husband, the elderly husband, with a metal spatula. And apparently his attorney, the defendant's attorney, tried to use the insanity plea. It didn't work because the wife of the deceased man that was killed said that there was no sign of any kind of mental illness or any weird quirks or anything. And so this Muslim refugee teen is going to now, he was just committed to a life in prison, and then he has a 2-year sentence on top of that, which is account to pay and he has to pay restitution of $150K to the wife for bodily harm, serious injury. And then he has a third count of first-degree robbery and a fourth count of first-degree burglary. And essentially it goes into details or whatever, but I actually have a video here, so I'll just play a clip of that, a little bit of that, so you can just hear it for yourself.
We're learning new details about the murder of a 97-year-old Des Moines man and about the teenager charged with killing him. Good evening, I'm Lynn Melling. Dan and Aaron are off tonight. Moments before an elderly man was killed and his wife beaten yesterday, the parents of the 19-year-old accused killer say he asked for their permission to go for a walk. When he came home, they say he had blood on his clothes. Now police are trying to figure out how a teen who has never been in trouble with the law could be accused of such a horrible crime. Tonight, the teen's parents talked exclusively with our Aaron Brilbeck.
In a desperate plea for help, 94-year-old Harriet Anderson called 911 after she and her husband were attacked in their home here on East 46th Street.
And somebody got in the house and attacked me and my husband, and I'm all bloody, and I'm an old woman. I'm on the floor, and my husband's been hit in the head.
But help would come too late. Anderson's husband, 97-year-old Rupert Anderson, died after the attack. After police arrived, 19-year-old suspected killer Norm McCooey walked past the police car of one of the responding officers with blood on his sweatshirt. The police car's dash camera caught a shot of McCooey, and it was shown to neighbors, and he was arrested. Police say what makes this case so disturbing, there doesn't seem to be any motive for the attack, and McCooey has no criminal history.
Zero history. I mean zero. There's nothing.
Alright, that's enough. Another thing I'd like to point out, obviously there hasn't been enough events or incidents of violence against Americans for me to collect this data and make an accurate assumption, per se. Not yet, but bear with me here. So if you paid attention to some of those videos where I was going over the center locations, which, by the way, I have forgot a couple of those, but the ones that I've gotten to, coincidentally, have been the ones that have been having incidents in them, or events. Which is kind of weird. I mean, that's not weird for me, but that's just interesting. Why I felt like it was that much precedence to get those ones done, and then I just hit a brick wall and I'm like, nah. But I need to get back up on that, by the way. So anyway, the one where the little girl got her face kicked in and her teeth were knocked out was also an African boy. This one is also African, from Ethiopia. So I'm wondering something here. MTV's obviously doing this whole thing where they're trying to insinuate and provoke racist tension between white people and black people. Right? Okay, go with me. They've been it's been blatant media manipulation, and they're also putting a lot of the refugee centers in ghetto areas, which is supposed to be part of Obama's plan to enhance or improve ghetto areas within the United States to help Americans. I actually have another project I'm kind of working on over there where I've been going through all of his executive orders that are on archive from the beginning of his presidency to now. And I honestly just only got through 2009, 2010, 2011, and I'm on 2012. And in February of 2009, before this epic shit was even transpiring, he was already setting up executive orders to basically funnel unconditional amounts of federal money into faith-based centers to help in inner city, basically poverty-stricken areas. So if you collected a bunch of Muslim refugees and dropped them into communities that have been historically, I wouldn't say for a long period of time, but have been stereotyped with violence, and that black people are historically violent, Black Lives Matter, and they get that into our head, people would likely look over news reports of potential refugee causing some sort of violence or attacking women or raping them or whatever like that, because they would just see the skin color, kind of overlook it, and then go, oh my gosh, see, another crime. So, and also one thing I would like to mention, the news report that happened with the little girl being attacked by not one but two African boys, they were very careful to not mention the refugee, that he was a foster refugee. That was actually clipped, I'm sure, because my dad's been on Fox News many times. I've actually been on the news myself when I was a kid. Granted, I didn't, really have anything important to say, and it was mainly my dad, but I do remember my dad always being pissed about when he was trying to say something important, which is the whole point why he agreed to be on the news in the first place, that they would then clip out and remove. And then also, I was featured on Fox News, what was it, 7 years ago? I'm not going to go into why, because I don't really want to bring that up. But it was Vegas News, and yeah, it was a phone interview. I was livid. They completely cut it up and tried to make it, put words in my mouth. And yeah, so I mean, I've been there firsthand. I'm sure with the way that mother was talking, that she happened to mention that he was a refugee boy, because then straight after that aired, she happened to go and make a blog and a website to inform people and to make people aware of what's going on. And I'm sorry if it was just a random another violence or abusive case between peers at a school, and it, other than it being a shooting, I don't understand why somebody would go to the lengths of that to create some sort of website for awareness if the media represented the story properly. Because that's the whole point of the media, is so she didn't have to do that. Just throwing that out there. The other couple ones that I've seen since I'm starting these videos, I'll go back and find them and make videos about them too, and I'll just make a whole little series section on one of my YouTube channels for this. So when people go, what violence has the refugee invasion, or crisis and immigration been causing? Then you can just give them links to all my damn videos.